Good morning or afternoon or evening or whatever it happens to be where you are when you tune in to this video. This is AM Dreamingstitcher here to bring you my progress on cross-stitching as part of the flosstube community, which is full of all us strange hobbyists who actually enjoy going on YouTube and watching videos about people's materials and progress in this wonderful hobby that's very slow, more on that later, but very rewarding in a very personal sense for us to do. I was last here with a video back near the beginning of May when I was showing my version of Stitch Maynia, in which I worked or intended to work on all 7 of my works in progress for 18 minutes a day during the first 18 days of May. I adapted that before I actually started so that I believed I would meet my goal if I did a total of the equivalent of 18 minutes a day, which would have been 5 hours and 24 minutes on each project in whatever order, because it turns out I'm very much a monogamous stitcher, and so I mostly did one project at a time to reach my totals. I did, however, in my last video show you what it would have looked like had I spent 18 minutes on each project. How much could I actually accomplish in that time? So today I intend to show you both where I got on those projects and what I have done since, and slip in a few acquisitions for you to see, and also talk about an awful truth that I have discovered about my stitching that's hard to face up to, but it's not going anywhere. Truth is what truth is. So let's start with a little bit of my progress first. I'm going to show you in reverse order the projects that I did. The one that I was supposed to finish up on, work in progress number 7, was my Tiffany wedding piece, a stamped cross-stitch piece that is my oldest work in progress. And it turns out, I hear that June is Wine and Whips month in the world of flosstube, where if one wishes, one can pick a piece that you whine about because for some reason it's not going smoothly for you, and focus on that piece. That's kind of important to know, because if I do Wine and Whips, the Tiffany wedding will be it. I haven't made any progress on my Tiffany wedding. I did not do my 5 hours and 24 minutes. I did the 18 minutes that you saw in my last video, and that was it. That was a Stitch Maynia fail for me. Sad to say, but maybe I'll do something with it in June. Let's just not talk about that one, okay? So of the 6 I did work on, yes, every one of them got in at least the 5 hours and 24 minutes that I was hoping to do. So let's talk about those, because that's a happier subject. The one that I got to last, according to my notes, was Fateful Night, because I guess I'm not that much of a fan of things like backstitching. Finishing up a piece. I like the full crosses and half crosses better, I guess. But this is my Jiffy Sunset Kit, Fateful Night, which is based on a famous photograph of the Titanic in the dock. And this piece has 14 different colors used in it, in both half and full crosses. It has, among those 14 colors, 5 different shades of backstitching, 4 different colors of French knots, and 1 color that is corded. So I have not made it as far as the French knots. I have, through Stitch Maynia, gotten up to the 4th color out of 5 of the backstitching. So let me show you where it is. Oh, and I haven't gotten to the cording yet. But we got this far. I got through the black backstitching, the gold backstitching, the red-brown kind of backstitching, and the people's faces and hands and such. Started on the gray backstitching. There is one little area of black I didn't do, which is up here by the flag. I intend to get to that when I do the gray superstructure that, well, I don't think you can call it superstructure, rigging that comes up near the flag. I figured that would be a good time to do it. During Maynia, I actually stopped just at the beginning of this gray in these cranes and things on the dock. But I did a little bit after Maynia, so that's how far I got with this one. It is on an 18 count, I believe. Aida cloth that was provided, yes, it is an 18 count, and the stitches are done with anywhere from 1 to 3 threads, the majority being 2, but all of that black on the ship, for example, is done with 3 strands. So like a lot of Dimensions kits, even though this is Jiffy Sunset, it gives you a variety of stitching. No fractionals that I recall, but we do have half crosses, full crosses, 1 strand, 2 strands, 3 strands, 14 different colors, 5 different back stitching colors, 4 different French knot colors, and so on, like I told you. So that's how far I made it on that one. Pardon me for a moment. I am going to pause you all just a minute. There, that wasn't painful for you at all. That was just a brief pause because it wasn't quite floss tube itchy nose, but I needed a short break there. So I want to show you my next piece that I progressed on, but before I do, I thought maybe if I'm going to inflict things like acquisitions on you, rather than doing them all in a pile, I'd slip them in a little at a time as I go. So before I show you my next piece, I want to show you 2 items that I got at the Friends of the Library last month, and I was very excited to find them. Why are they not showing up? Oh, here they are. One was Teresa Wentzler's The Storyteller, 25 cents. Got me that pattern. And the other is a book that I found kind of interesting. It's sea things, fish and shells and pelicans and whatnot. But the different models are worked up as both cross-stitch projects and needlepoint. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's called, This is the Seashore Again. Apparently the same company had done another one called This is the Seashore. And this was also 25 cents. And there's a lot of different little patterns in there. I like those. So, see, snuck in some acquisition on you. Next, what piece did I progress on during Stitch Mania month in May? Before Fateful Night, I was working on Floral Splendor. Floral Splendor is a kit from Artiste that's done on black 14 count Aida cloth. It has 35 colors, 8 of which reappear in the back stitching, and 4 of which appear as French knots. Of course, I haven't gotten to any of the back stitching or French knots yet. What this piece will look like when it's done is something like that. And what I had showed you before was I'd been working in and around the nest. I thought I'd done an awful lot of the nest, but really a lot more of the stitching I did since then was in the nest. That nest just goes on forever, I guess. I also have added some green up above the nest, all of this green below, and I got tired of reading the tiny, tiny little symbols on the chart that sometimes force me to get out my magnifying glass to tell which symbol it is that I'm looking at. Things that look to my naked eye like triangles turn out to be little T-shaped things. I mean, it's hard to explain, but they don't go all out to make their charts large and readable. Let's just put it that way. But I decided to move on to the border because I didn't have to figure out the symbols for that. So that was my Maynia progress on Floral Splendor. Obviously have a very long way to go. But other than the tiny symbols on the chart that are so hard to read, and I'm kind of avoiding right now the fractional stitches because all the back stitching lines and such make it kind of, and the tiny print of the chart, make it hard to see exactly what's going on there. So I need to man up, if you'll excuse the expression, and buckle down and try to do some of the more complicated stitching in that one instead of taking the easy route out and doing just the border. Okay, another acquisition. I went again to the thrift stores, the Friends of the Library a second time, and also a local charity shop. And at the charity shop, I got 2 magazines that have virtually nothing in them that I would ever stitch. This is the July 1995 For the Love of Cross Stitch, but it has one chart I like. And so for the enormous price of 25 cents, I got the chart that will have those tropical fish. Now I'm not 100% happy with the tropical fish. I want the greens to be brighter, so if I stitch it I will probably change the greens. I'm not crazy about the border, so I may drop the border, but I like the design. I might play with the colors a little bit and the edge a little bit, but I like that one. So was my 25 cents well spent? I don't know, because it says 25 projects in this issue. There's only one I can even tolerate. Who knows? The other 25-cent find there came from this issue of For the Love of Cross Stitch, which was September 1994. Also full of charts, says 23 projects that I wouldn't touch, except for the pretty pears and maybe the dinosaurs. If I actually knew a child to stitch that for, I love dinosaurs. I could see maybe doing those. They're kind of cool dinosaurs. But I got it for the pretty pears chart. So let me show you the pretty pears, and then I'll go back to my stitching. I've got to be careful because I don't want you to see the actual pattern. Pretty pears. Oh, I like those. I told you before I like pears. I've showed you a pear project I've had for a very long time that I want to do. I like those pears a lot. For 25 cents, I want to do those pears. I do. Okay, so back to Stitch Mania. What else did I do? Before Floral Splendor, I was working on my White Rabbit piece from Orenco. It is a simplified Orenco chart, the first and only Orenco chart I've ever done. And it happens to have 30 colors in it. They're all full crosses. There is no back stitching. There are no French knots. There's none of that stuff going on. Just the rabbit. And in this case, I'm not going to show you the final pattern because he's going to look like the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, and I've shown it to you many times before. I again chickened out a bit and did a lot of border, but I was working quite a bit, in this corner, filling this in. You can't tell, but that's almost solid now. I was doing a lot of stitching in there. And yes, there is some confetti, but not as bad as some other parts of the piece. So I was doing the corner and a lot of border, and obviously I stopped in the middle there. I did work some on the rabbit. I was working on the red, bits of brown here and there. I remember throwing in some blue up in that big blue blob above his head. I was kind of all over with this one. But yeah, we'll see how that turns out. That was my Stitch Mania progress on him. So, I said I went to the Friends of the Library again. I'm going to show you 3 finds from the Friends of the Library, assuming I can find all 3. I'm seeing 2 of them, and I know there were 3. So I may either pause to figure out where the other one went or have to skip out on it. We'll see. One of them was this 12 Days of Christmas. Oh, and the nice thing was that our Friends of the Library is getting ready to move. I got all these like 2 days ago, by the way. And because they're moving, the guy at the desk let me have all 3 for a dime. He said, how about you give me 10 cents for those? So, it was 10 cents for the 3 that you're about to see. One of them was this 12 Days of Christmas, which apparently originally was from Better Homes and Gardens, Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. I do not like that finish with the fat green ruffles. I do not like the oval shape with the little hearts on either side. But I like the actual numbers and designs, so I figure if I get the urge to stitch this for the 3.5 cents that I paid for the chart, I will make them round. I'll just drop those hearts off and make them completely circular around the numbers and the little images in the center. That's what I will do. Also for my dime, I got this, which is full of pretty hideous projects, except the one that I bought it for. It actually has two nice ones. This one, I think, is nice. Is Art Nouveau alphabet. I don't think I would stitch it, but I think it is quite pretty. But the reason I forked over my 3.5 cents was because I want to do these seashells. Sea shapes. Obviously I'm hung up on sea shapes. I don't live anywhere near the sea. I've hardly ever been to the sea. But I like those. I like the variety of shells in that one. The spindle shell and just all of them. They're all different. I like them. Give you a chance to see those. I like the shells. So I'd like to do that one. And I have made myself such a mess here. I'm going to pause you briefly and find that third one, and then I'll go on to the next stitching. So I promise there will be stitching, even though I'm sneaking in a few other things. Okay, the reason I couldn't find it was because it was in the other room. The final Friends of the Library acquisition was this Needlecraft Kingdom. I know that's not me. I don't know how it mounted its way from Michigan to where I live in the Southwest, but for her privacy, I'll cover that lady's name and address. It's this book called Needlecraft Kingdom, and again, I thought I was going to pay 25 cents for it, but he let me have all three for a dime. It's hard to show you what's there because there are very few actual worked up models in here. Mostly what you get come on. The charts don't even necessarily tell you what colors to do. Is the occasional page showing some of the projects stitched up, but a lot of it is just charts where they suggest possible colors for you. I mean, some of them are even just shapes, and they say you might do this or that with your shape. It's one of those books that's intriguing because you almost want to stitch them up just to see how they will actually look when stitched. And there are a variety of things in there. It's really hard to say. I don't think they had, did they have a table of contents? Yeah, they have a table of contents for the categories. So you can see there's some children's ones, animals, cultural, geometric seasons, different stuff in there. But yeah, that one was just intriguing, so I got it. Okay, back to the stitching. Before Fateful Night, Floral Splendor, and White Rabbit, I was working on Birds of a Feather. Birds of a Feather, you may recall, is going to be the top chart in that image. And I was enjoying this one a lot. I think it's working up nicely. I really want to get back to it. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to do every work in progress during Stitch Mania, was to try to fall in love with them again. Mostly what I did on this one was berries. This chart does have 18 different colors plus 5 blended colors. 5 blends, so I guess you could say there's 23 different colors if you count the blends as each being their own new color. It has 5 colors of back stitching, or will have, including 3 that are not otherwise in the chart. And it's worked in full crosses on, I chose a, is this 16 or 14 count? Might be 16. It's a fiddler's cloth or an oatmeal Aida. I think oatmeal Aida, and I think it is 16 count. And mostly what I did was berries. And that's where a lot of the blends are. There are blends in the wood, there are blends in the berries. I think when I was showing you the 18 minutes of progress, it was this berry here that I was working on. but most of what you see in the center here I did after for the rest of Stitch Maynia. And I'm really liking that one. I think they're so pretty, and that's even without any of the back stitching or anything going on. And so I definitely want to come back to that one and keep it up. I think it's going to be lovely. I always liked it, and I want to do it. And it's going to be a gorgeous piece. Okay, before I show you the one I worked on prior to that, I told you that I might go back to Hobby Lobby one more time and look for a book that I probably didn't need, and it was because it had this bug. I went back and got the book because it had the bug. That's the bug I was talking about right there. I also put in an order to, shall I show you that now? Nope, that'll be after the next piece. Let me show you the next piece. The next piece that I worked on before Birds of a Feather was His Eye is on the Sparrow from Heartstring Sampler II. There we go, Heartstring Sampler II. I'm not normally, as you can tell from all my other choices, the kind of person that stitches sampler type pieces. I got this and Dutch Beauty because I fell in love with both of them. I was actually putting Dutch Beauty in my cart at 123 Stitch, and they recommended this one, and I thought, yeah, I like that. As I've told you before, I've changed up everything. I've changed up all the colors, the fabric, all of it. So mine is not going to be as gorgeous as everybody else's. Mine is sort of an experiment. It's a Frankenstein project. First of all, being on apparel linen that is not equal in both directions. And I don't even remember the size. It's something like 36 in one direction and 32 in the other or something. I don't know. But that's where I am so far. I'm still up in the top corner. It's going to be a huge piece. I've barely begun. You can see everything is stretched out vertically. It, by the way, has Sparrow 24 different colors in the piece. It called for variegated threads, but I obviously changed those. I don't know that I'm happy with my color choices because in a lot of cases you can't tell the difference. Like that little squirrel behind the cow is actually a different color brown than the cow, but who would know because they're so much alike, and some of my yellows are too much alike, and I don't know. My color choices, it's an experiment. We will see what happens. It's not as though they're showing up that well on the camera either. I've added a bit since Stitch Maynia, by the way. This is not just Stitch Maynia progress, if you're wondering. Considering my 18 minutes, I think I did a leaf. I did one of these green leaves over here, I think. And so that would be an awful lot for my 5 hours, 24 minutes. But I did stitch after Stitch Maynia on this one. So I've added the squirrel, I added the this little deer, the bird below him where the yellows are too much alike, the flowers. I've started on this big deer, been filling in the flower basket, and I left the bottom out because I was just curious how this would show up on the camera, because it looks like mud to me, in mud isn't the right word, but mush. The colors, the two different colors, just sort of blend into each other so that I can't really tell that anything's going on there. So I wanted to prove down here I really am doing it in two different shades, even though to me, to my naked eye, it looks like mush. I don't know. But I will fill those in. They're not going to stay that way. And so we're coming along. I noticed that someone on the cross stitch sleepover page at Instagram, which I peeked at, I don't do Instagram, I'm not in it, but I can do a search and get there and look at the pictures that are posted, was posting their progress on this, and of course they're doing it with all the proper fabrics and colors and everything, it looked like. But I'm not too far behind them, except that this big bird over here, the blue one, was kicking my butt. I had so many knots in him that I just kind of gave up. That's why he's not done yet. He should be blue. It's actually, the original color called for was Lexington green, but he should be that shade throughout his body, and I just didn't get to it yet because of the knots. That green line below the flower at the bottom is the start of the wording. It is going to have a band across it. You probably can't tell from this, but below the house there it has a band that says "Whose Eyes on the Sparrow," and that little top of that band is the green below the flower. So there's my progress on that, my strange experiment of my colors and my weird fabric and my everything, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be a strange piece. How many times can I say strange to describe that piece? We'll see. Not the designer's fault. That's totally me. Okay, I started to show you another acquisition. Hearst Nurse. I ordered from them, and I saw that Homesteading on the Homefront wants to do a flip through of this, so I am not going to flip through it for you. This was $5. There's not much in there I would stitch. Maybe 2 pieces that I actually liked. I can't say that I liked, that I would see myself stitching. One of them would be that stained glass piece, and I'm going to let her do the flip through, but the other one was some tiny reindeer tree skirt that I liked. But what I want you to see is, in a previous video when I was showing you all my Hobby Lobby haul, I was totally excited because they had a book of stockings in which one of the stockings was this thing I'd been in love with forever. And so I was excited that I got a pattern and I was going to be able to stitch it. And come on, it must be at the beginning of the book. It's tiny. That stocking below my fingers, that's the one that was in the other book. So I got 2 copies of that pattern now. I guess I really better stitch him. Another thing I got at Hearst Nurse in the same order was this very soft Aida cloth. These were all bargains, by the way. That's why I'm continuing to show them to you with my other acquisitions. Everything was cheap. So this was 4 pieces. And don't know if you can see them, blue, cream, gray, pink. They have other names for them like blush and slate, and I don't know what they call them. But these are fairly sizable. I think they're 18 by 22. I don't remember, but 4 big pieces, very soft. I hope I'm not crinkling too much. That didn't occur to me, sorry. For $5. It's $1.25 a piece. You can't beat that. Well, you can if you find them at a thrift store, which I didn't. But yeah, I thought that was too much of a deal to pass up. What else did I get? I think I got flour sack towels, and I don't remember. Just cheap stuff. Okay, stitching. Prior to His Eyes on the Sparrow, I was working on my gray carousel horse. So that was the last of my acquisitions, by the way. So while I'm showing you the carousel horse, I'm going to confess to the awful truth that I have discovered about cross stitch. Sorry, trying to get this ugly gray hair out of the way. I don't stitch quickly. I guess I don't necessarily stitch slowly. I was actually driven to look online today and see what I could find out about my stitching speed, because what happened was, excuse me, I have to find the picture of the carousel horse. One moment. Got it. Stacy Noel posted a video for Stitch Maynia, and she had some beautiful projects. I enjoyed all of them, but she's very meticulous about tracking her stitching in every way, from the number of colors to how much she spent on a project, what the fabric cost, what the floss cost, how much time she spent, how many stitches she put in, and she was showing how many stitches per minute she did on her Maynia projects. This, by the way, is the carousel horse in Bernat that I'm about to show you. And her calculations showed that for every one of them, she always did at least 2 stitches per minute, and usually more than 3 stitches per minute. And she calculated them out fractionally, like 3.47 stitches per minute on this project. A couple of them she'd only done 2-point-something stitches per minute on. So I thought, well, I never time mine. I have no idea how quickly I stitch. I want to stitch all of them, stitch all the things, right? I want to get them all done. tore a stitch piece. That was the one time, because they wanted you to track the time you spent on it, that I actually wrote down time spent on the project. That included time threading needles, time picking it up and looking at the chart before I started, time changing letter to letter, all of that. But it was mostly one color, black with lettering, and I knew exactly how many hours I spent, and I had the chart so I could count up the number of stitches after the fact. I stitched barely 100 stitches an hour, less than 2 per minute. It came out to like 1.92. It was something like 115 stitches averaged per hour when I'm just stitching in nothing but black and not having to worry about changing the color of the thread or anything else. Yeah, that's not good. That is not Stacy Noel's between 2 and 3 stitches per minute on hers. It is certainly not, as I heard another floss tuber say, she said she knew she was quick, and she does 300 or 400 stitches per hour. Oh my lord. That's at least 5 a minute, and I can't even get to 2. So things like this horse, I'm never going to finish everything I want to do, folks. It's not like it's hard. This horse has 20 colors. He is on the fabric that he was provided with. In addition to the 7 colors, to the 20 colors in him, 7 of them also appear as back stitching. One of the colors appears as French knots, and one of the colors will be lazy daisies. So he has a number of specialty stitches, not fancy specialty, just back stitching, lazy daisies, and French knots, that will show up as well as the 20 colors of full crosses. He is stitched with 3 strands. All of the other ones I've been showing you, his eye was on the sparrow, was 1 strand on that linen. All of the others have been 2 strands, except for the Fateful Night that I told you was anywhere from 1 to 3. This guy's 3 strands, as called for. And at 100 stitches an hour, at less than 2 a minute, I'm never going to be able to stitch everything I want to stitch. I set a goal a few days ago that I wanted to do her 2 hind legs. That was days ago. I'm still not done with her 2 hind legs. Since you saw her last, I've mostly been filling in her hind quarters and the flowers there. Oh, and the border, obviously. I didn't have nearly that much border when you saw her last. She came from eBay. She's an old kit from 1987. One thing that's going on with her is whoever originally owned her left the needle in the fabric. They used to ship them that way, I guess, instead of putting the little individually wrapped needles like most of them will do now. And there is a rust mark there, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen when I get done with the stitching, if I'll be able to somehow cover up the rust mark with the matting or not. I don't know. I think she's coming nicely. She needs her back stitching and such. But I'm just, how am I ever going to finish these if I can only do 100 stitches an hour? And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I enjoy what I do. I'm happy with the stitching I'm doing. I'm not saying that, why can't I be the person that does 300 or 400? I'm just saying, how can I ever stitch all my things when I'm so average? And I think it is average. I did look online this morning to try to figure out, it wasn't just Stacy Noel's remarks, by the way, that made me wonder about my stitching speed, or the floss tuber who said she does 300 or 400 an hour. It was also watching Jessie Marie does stuff recently, and she was talking about how she did hardly any stitching at the New Jersey retreat because she only got in 900 stitches over 3 days, so that's 300 a day, when normally she would have done 700 a day. I would have to stitch between 6 and 7 hours at least to do 700 stitches a day. I don't have 6 or 7 hours of stitching time. I'm not saying she has 6 or 7 hours of stitching time. I'm saying she's a faster stitcher than I am. And I just wish. Now the fastest stitcher I've seen, and I don't know if it's time spent stitching or actual quick stitches, is Luby's Lot. Is that her name? Her channel name? She's amazing to watch her videos. I think it's Luby's Lot. I hope I'm remembering the right one, because she'll talk about the books she's read. She always reads a pile of books in a month. She'll talk about all the stitching she's done and say, well, I haven't got much done this month, and she's done 10 times as much as I have. She's just amazing. I like her projects too, but she accomplishes so much, and I'm not saying I'm envious of that. It's not appropriate to be jealous or envious of others. That's not what I mean. I'm only sad because for myself, the awful truth is I'll never accomplish that much because I'm just slower. I just am. It is what it is. So I did look online for rate of speed for cross-stitching, and I found some commentary at a Google Groups site where someone who had done home stitching for, I think, cross-stitching country crafts, said that they had figured out the average stitcher does about 100 stitches an hour, and that she personally could do about 120. Someone else in the same thread was saying, oh, the average stitcher is 200. I'm thinking, whoa, I'm nowhere near 200. But if the first lady was correct that the average stitcher does around 100, that's probably me. So I'm average, not exceptionally slow, just average. And how can I ever stitch all the things? I just have to keep working on it. That is one of the awful truths I have discovered about my own stitching. I have a number of awful truths about cross-stitch that have been occurring to me lately, but I'm going to save those for another time, I think. That was my first, and that's a sufficient awful truth for one day. By the way, most of this was not Maynia stitching. Didn't mean to give her short shrift. I showed you what I had done. She was almost done with her Maynia stitching when I showed her to you last month. Everything since then has been post Maynia stitching. So I've done more on her. I've done more on His Eyes on the Sparrow. Everything else is pretty much, I've done a tiny bit more on Fateful Night, but pretty much what you saw is what I accomplished during Stitch Maynia. And we will see what we will see. I hope to get more done. Oh, speaking of that, just one last comment. One thing that holds me back, it isn't just the fact that my physical stitching is not super fast, it's average. It's that I don't use my time as well as I would like to for stitching. I think a lot of what is going on is not just that I'm busy with so many other things in life, which I am. I've told you about them in other videos. But the depression, I think, is part of it. Because if I can, I'll work a little bit before leaving for work in the morning, and I'll be kind of gung-ho and maybe get in anywhere between 15 and, if I'm really lucky, 40 minutes of stitching before leaving for work. And I think about it all day, and I want to do it when I come home. And by the time I get home, I am so emotionally and mentally exhausted that I plop myself down in a chair and almost don't move, even with the stitching right there beside me. It doesn't get done at night. It doesn't get done when I'm home from work. So I need weekends and days off to do the stitching, because I was looking up things about not necessarily depression, but issues, and I came across a new word, avolition. So volition is when you want to do something, and avolition is when apparently you're not able to do what you want to do, not because of any physical impediment, but just you can't bring yourself to do what you want to do. And that's the way I feel about the stitching. I really want to do it. By the time I get home from work, I'm so, as I said, just drained. I can't do anything. I sit. And I hope I get over that. You know, depression doesn't have to be permanent. I hope I work through it. I hope I, do better in the future. But that's not helping my progress much. Anyway, I'd love to get through these projects so that I can start picking up some more. There are so many I want to do. I love watching all of you out there in FlossTube land. Oh yes, I did want to put in, before I go, please permit me to give you a couple of shout outs. I don't really understand social media well. I don't understand how all that works, but I'm figuring it out after this many months, almost 2 years of FlossTubes. That a shout out, I guess, is to draw other people's attention to somebody so that they will watch it and mostly in the past I didn't bother because everybody I'm watching, you all are watching anyway, but there are a couple of floss tubers that I think would be appreciative of more viewers. So if you have not already, one of them who commented, I think, on one of my first videos and comments on everybody and is such a sweet lady, I believe her name is Jane, is Granny Baker in Stitches. She started as Mrs. Baker Girl when I was first floss tubing, and then she changed her channel name and she's Granny Baker in Stitches now, and she's such a nice lady, and she posts videos pretty regularly and shows us what she's working on. And she has said that she posts the videos kind of for herself, that it helps her motivate her and feel better about herself in a way. So I wish she'd get more viewers. I mean, she has a loyal following. She's very sweet. Please, if you haven't looked at hers already, try a few of those and see if you don't get hooked on Granny Baker in Stitches, just because she's such a nice lady. And another one who's back, who's been gone for a while, is Lillith Sarath. And confession to make here, I've told you one reason I'm very private on FlossTube is that I know that it's going out there potentially to the entire world. I'm not saying that the entire world is going to look at me. They're not. That's one of the awful truths about cross-stitching, is nobody's really interested except cross-stitchers, excuse me. But anybody you know could see you there, and the people I know in real life, I don't really want to share that much of myself with them through this medium. I am not a social media person. But Lillith Sarath, Courtney, I actually knew in real life when she lived in my state. She doesn't live there now. So it was shocking the first time one of her videos came up. It was like, I know this person. I remember this person. I won't tell you the context in which I knew her, but I'm very interested in hers because I did actually know Courtney in person. But she's another one who could use some viewers, because, you know, none of us should be looking for external validation through social media, but that doesn't mean you don't get that feedback loop. Everybody likes to say, you know, please subscribe and comment and like and all those things, because it does feel good when it happens. For some of us, we don't need that. We realize we're never going to be, you know, the FlossTube sensation that has thousands of viewers, which is kind of funny because real YouTube sensations have millions of viewers and we have thousands, and that makes us happy. I have a few hundred. I'm happy with those. That's very good. I like to get the comments. Again, because of my lack of social media skills, I don't know how to respond to those. I'm not good at that part. But I know that it still feels nice to know that somebody's paying attention. You do feel wanted, or that somebody is interested in what you're doing. And I think Lillith would benefit from that. So if you haven't already looked at her channel, please go to Lillith, Lillith, Sarath, Sarath. Go see Miss Granny Baker in Stitches. Oh, and one other one. Now, this is not a person that I think is looking for viewers. I just thought it was a really cool little video. I stumbled across it. It was by someone named Carrie Hu, H-U. And it's short, and there's no speaking, and it's obviously filmed in China, and it's just aesthetically really interesting. It has pretty music, it has lovely Chinese ladies stitching, it has those giant charts that they're working on, it has someone framing some of the hugest pieces I've ever seen. Carrie Hu. Just go look at it. She only put up like 2 videos. One of them was just very short, like a minute and a half. Fun to watch. Anyway, those are my shout outs, I guess. They're not the most exciting floss tubers out there, but I think they're worth your time if you go check them out. So I will see you again in the future. I don't know when, and I hope that you found something in here worth watching. Enjoy your stitching, enjoy your day, night, whatever it might be, and I'll see you in the future. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for coming to visit, and I'll put another one out there sometime, I believe. Bye-bye.